Hello and welcome to our YouTube channel Study with Sudhir, and I hope you have subscribed to the channel and also pressed on the bell icon so that you can get regular updates. We're almost done with most of the class 9 and 10 English syllabus ICSE stream, and today we are going to be looking at the second part of the Blue Bead. We've already done the first part of the short story by Norah Burke, and I hope you have gone through that, because only then you can come to the second part where we will finish the story and also give you an explanation of the major themes of poverty, of courage, of a child's innocence. And we've already introduced the three principal characters: the crocodile, Sibia, and of course the Blue Bead. So let's get started with the story. We have done half the story till now, and we have kind of established, and we are going to be now witnessing the major clash scene that takes place between Sibia, the 12-year-old girl, and the crocodile, who Norah Burke has told us is almost 100 years old. So it's almost like a David versus Goliath kind of a battle that is going to take place on the river bank. So now she says, now there was the river, twinkling between the trees, sunlit beyond dark trunks. They could hear it rushing along. So you can almost, in the manner of the magical manner in which Norah Burke uses her language, you can almost feel that the river is gushing along. And that's really the beauty and magic of literature, that a good author is able to recreate the scene for you, almost making you feel and imagine what is happening before you. And that's what is really the beauty and power of good quality literature. The women came out on the shore and made for the stepping stones. They had plenty to laugh and bicker about, bicker as in complaining, small complaints. And they bicker about, in this particular case, about the agents who actually made more money than, while the hard work was actually done by the women. As they approached the river in a noisy crowd, they girded up their skirts so as to jump from stone to stone. You can imagine there would be many small rocks in the river bed, so they would jump from stone to stone, taking care that they do not step into the water and wet their clothes and skirts. And they clanged their sickle. Sickle is the instrument with which you cut the grass, and forks together with over their shoulders to have ease of movement. A hand fork, a hay fork, is something which has got those three kind of needles, pointed ends, with which Sibia will actually tackle the crocodile at the end of the story. Forks together over their shoulders, and they use it to cut the grass to have ease of movement. They shouted their quarrels above the gush of the water. So you can imagine the noise of the river, and you can imagine the noise created by these women. The sound of laughter and quarrels and everything, and bickering and everything that is taking place while they are moving around in a group through the river, through the mountains and the hills, where they would get to the place where they would be able to cut the paper grass. Noise frightens crocodiles. Now this is an important bit of information that Norah Burke is actually giving you, that noise frightens crocodiles. So the crocodiles do not move when there is a noise of human beings. They lie still in the water because they feel perhaps a little intimidated, perhaps a little scared, afraid of this noise being made by the women in this particular case. The big mugger did not move, and all the women crossed in safety to the other bank. So while they're going, they're safe because they're making a lot of noise, and the crocodile just doesn't move. Here they had to climb a still hillside to get at the grass, but all fell to with a will and sliced away at it wherever there was foothold to be had. So it was a steep hill, and they just kind of caught positions where they would not slip down, and they started cutting the grass. Down below ran the broad river. So it's a large river, and as I said yesterday in video 1, it could well have been the Ganges that Norah Burke is talking about, pouring powerfully out from its narrow pools among the cold cliffs and shadows. So there's another hint that it could well be the Ganges or perhaps the Yamuna, because these are the two Indian rivers which come from the Gangotri and the Yamunotri, and here Norah Burke is talking about the cliffs and the cold icy water spreading into warm shallows, that is not very deep pools, lit by kingfishers, a bird. Great turtles lived there, and mahseer weighing more than 100 pounds. So now she's giving you a glimpse of the kind of water life and aquarian life which was there in that part, avian life, which was there in that part of the river. Turtles, kingfisher, a bird, great turtles, and mahseer. Mahseer is a kind of fish weighing more than 100 pounds. crocodiles too. Sometimes you could see them lying out on those slabs of clay out there, but there was none to be seen at that point in time. Where Sibia was working, wind coming across hundreds of miles of trees cooled her sweating body. Sweating body, important, please underline it, because it again reinforces that she is a hard-working 12-year-old girl. And she could look down the river as if she were a bird. So just look at the imagination. She's at a height on a hill. She's perched there while she's cutting the grass, and from there she can see the mighty river, the broad river flowing as if she, almost like a bird's view. She's able to get a bird's view of the broad mighty river. Although she did not dare stop for a moment under her mother's eye, her imagination took her in swooping flight over the bright water and golden air to the banks where she had played as a child. So extremely well described scene, while she will not dare to do anything which her mother did not approve of, but she could look there and get a bird's eye view of the mighty river. In those cavelets above the high water mark of the highest flood. So when the floods had come to that river, it had actually come to a point among the hill also. So there were marks there which kind of indicated that up till that point the water had risen. She had stored some little bowls molded of clay while they hardened. If there were anything that they could be used for coloring, they would look fine painted with marigolds and elephants. So this shows an artistic nature of Sibia, and there is also a childlike fascination for those little things which she had made of clay and put them out there. Cavelets are small indentations, that is small holes in the rocks where she could actually place those small objects. Child. The sharp word, the glare of her mother's angry sweating face pulled Sibia back to work, and they toiled on. So no more imagination, she had to get back to work. We've already been told that she was born to toil. So her mother does not give the luxury of imagining and just looking around, not doing any work. But at last it was time to go back to see their animals and the evening meal. So the entire day has passed, the women have cut the grass, and we've already been told that when they go back, they carry a huge load on their back. The loaded women set out to cross the river again. So now they are going to come back. Sibia hung back. She was slow to catch on with the rest of the women. She would just dawdle a bit, dawdle as in just playfully run around and see if the little clay cups were still there in the cave, waiting to be painted and used. So if they had dried up, she would actually get them to paint in those lovely, vibrant, radiant colors of marigolds. Although the women were now tired and loaded, they still talked. Just a commentary on the women. They still talked. Those in front yelled to those behind. Now it was not a close-knit group, but they were actually in slightly spread out there. So if the first woman had to convey something to the someone who was behind, she had to actually shout, raise her voice so that it could be heard above the noisy river. They crossed the river safely and disappeared up the track into the trees on the other side. Even their voices died away. Silence fell. So now you're getting the feeling of that it's going to be dusk. It's not bright light like it is at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. It's going to be sunset, and silence has fallen because many of the women have actually already crossed the river, but there are some more like Sibia who are still left behind. Sibia came down alone to the stepping stones, and one of the questions that could be asked is, why was she late? She was late because she was checking in the cavelets about her little bowls made of clay. The clay cups. The light of evening was striking up the gorge, pink into the ultraviolet shadows. Now that the sun was off it, the water poured almost invisible among the stones with no reflection to show where it began. Sibia stepped onto the first stone. She was heavily weighted because she was carrying the weight, her muscles stretched and aching. After all, she is just a 12-year-old girl. The hay fork squeaked. The hay fork, as I said, which has three kind of indentations, sharp ones with which you can actually cut the grass and use it also in this particular case as an instrument of defense. She was heavily weighted, her muscles stretched and aching. The hay fork squeaked in the packed dry grass and dug into her collarbone, so close under the skin, in spite of the sari bunched up to make a pad. This is what a hay fork looks like, with three sharp edges with which to cut the grass, or in this particular case to use as a weapon of self-defense. When she was halfway over, she put her load down on a big boulder to rest and leaned, breathing on the fork. So basically shows that she is tired after working so hard through the day and now having to walk all the way through the river back home. At the same time, a Gujar woman came down with 2 gurras to the water on the other side. So now a Gujar woman comes with 2 gurras, that is 2 pots, to fill water from the river. In order to get the good clear water which would quickly fill both gurras to the top without sand, she walked onto the stepping stone. Sand because the riverbed also has sand. So she wants to take water from a place where it will not get mixed with sand. So she wanted good clear water which cannot be right at the river bank. So she needs to move a little into the river in order to be able to fetch clear, clean water. She was within a yard of the crocodile when he lunged at her. Now the crocodile, why did it attack the Gujar woman? Because unlike earlier where there was a group of women who were making a lot of sound and noise which scared the crocodile, which intimidated the crocodile, in this particular case it was just one solitary Gujar woman, and the crocodile realized that he had a good chance to make a killing out here to go for the Gujar woman. So he lunged at her, he jumped at her up out of the darkling water. And just look at this very fascinating description of the manner in which the attack by the crocodile takes place on the Gujar woman. Up out of the darkling water heaved the great reptile, water slushing off him, his livid jaws. Livid because it's also angry, it's also perhaps hungry, it wants its prey. Yawning because it would be open, and all the teeth flashing. If you have seen some of the crocodile's teeth, extremely sharp and lots of them, flashing as he slashed at her leg. So he wanted to catch her leg and pull her down into the river. The woman screamed, dropped both the brass pots with a clatter on the boulder as in one of the rocks which are there, and they made that kind of a sound. From whence they bounced to the water, and Sibia saw them bob away in the current. Oh, the 2 good vessels gone. So her first concern was not so much for the Gujar, but being the child and the childlike innocence she had, she actually realized that those 2 good old vessels are actually going away into the water. So her first concern was for the 2 vessels. The Gujar woman recoiled from the crocodile, but his jaws closed on her leg at the same moment as she slipped and fell onto the bone-breaking stone, because if she fell onto the stone, she would hurt herself there as well, and clutched one of the timber logs to save herself. So the timber logs which Norah Burke has already spoken about, that they would be floating through the river. So the Gujar woman catches on to one of those timber logs in order to save herself, extricate herself, remove herself from the crocodile's jaw. The log jammed between 2 boulders, with the woman clinging to it and screaming, while the crocodile pulled on her leg, threshing his mighty tail, bang bang, to get more kind of force in order to be able to pull the woman into the water. To and fro in great smacking flails as he tried to drag her free, because she had caught onto the log and the log was between the 2 boulders. So there was some way she could actually ensure that the crocodile was not able to pull her into the river, and he was pulling at her leg with greater force, which was kind of helped by the swashing of the long tail, and carry her off down into the deeps of the pool. Blood spread everywhere. So obviously the woman had now begun to bleed from her leg. Sibia sprang. So now you're getting the first impression of the hero of the story, Sibia, in the word sprang, because sprang as a word conveys action, it conveys dynamism, it conveys a momentum, it conveys a sense of heroism, because she's now going to go, though she's much younger, just a child, a 12-year-old child, she's now going to try and be the hero to save the Gujar woman from the crocodile. From boulder to boulder, she came leaping. It's almost like the Jungle Book. From boulder to boulder, she came leaping like a rock goat. Rock goat, again goats which are found in the mountains, which are able to actually balance very, very delicately and very smartly on the rocks. You wouldn't find them in the goats which you find in the towns and the cities, but the goats which are found in the mountains, they're almost trained to balance themselves very, very adroitly on the rocks. Sometimes it had seemed difficult to cross these stones, especially the big gap in the middle where the river coursed through like a bulge of glass. But now she came on wings. It was almost like Sibia was flying. It was as if she had wings, choosing her footing in mid-air without even thinking about it. And in one moment she was beside the shrieking woman, who was obviously extremely very scared. In the boiling bloody water which had become red because of the blood from the leg of the woman, the face of the crocodile fastened around her leg was tugging to and fro and smiling. It was a smile of something which the crocodile was almost able to conquer. So there was an evil smile which have already been told about by Norah Burke right in the first part of the story. His eyes rolled on to Sibia. One slap of the tail could kill her. So it would take only a slap of the tail, because it was huge and heavy, and that could kill Sibia. So you kind of get an impression about how tiny she was and how mighty and big the crocodile was. He struck, that is, the crocodile struck. Up shot the water 20 feet and fell like a silver chain. Look at the beauty of the description, that the water jumped almost 20 feet just by this swash of the slap of the tail and fell like silver chain. Again, did it again. The rock jumped under the blow. It's almost like even the rocks were trembling and shivering because of the action that the crocodile was doing, because the crocodile was also livid. It wanted to get its prey, which is the Gurjar woman. But in the daily heroism of the jungle, as common as a thorn tree, Sibia did not hesitate. So you're getting the author is building to the heroic act that Sibia is going to do, and the fact that such incidents keep on happening inside that jungle. She did not get disturbed. She did not get scared. She did not get perturbed. She aimed at the reptile's eyes, because she knew that the soft parts of the crocodile were that yellow spot and the eyes. She was an aware person. She knew what to do in circumstances, in situations like these. With all the force of her little body, she drove the hay fork at the eyes, and one prong went right in while its pair scratched past on the horny cheek. So one part of the hay fork went right into the eye, and the other two went and hit the cheek. If it goes into one eye, the other two hitting the cheeks. The crocodile reared up in convulsion. Convulsion as in is a reaction to the extreme pain caused by the impact of the hay fork, till half his lizard body was out of the river. So because of its reaction, it was like half of the crocodile's body was out of the water, the tail and nose nearly meeting over its stony back. Then he crashed back, exploding the river, and in an uproar of bloody foam, he disappeared. So that impact of the hay fork going and hitting him on its soft part, that is the eye, had the desired effect. He just disappeared. There was blood in the water, and he crashed back. He would die. Norah Burke knows that this is what happens when crocodiles are hit on their soft part, that he would die. Not yet, but presently, though his death would not be known for days, not till his stomach, blown with gas, floated him. So it will go into the water, and then when the body will be filled with water over a period of time, over some days, it would come on the surface of the water. Then perhaps he would be found upside down among the logs at the timber boom with pus in his eye. Pus is that white thing which is found whenever you have an infection. So because here the hay fork has gone inside, has pierced the eye, pus would be formed, and that is something which would be found on the dead body of the crocodile. Sibia got her arms around the fainting woman, because the woman was obviously terrified as a result of the attack by the crocodile, and somehow dragged her from the water. She stopped her wounds with sand and bound them with rag, and helped her home to the Gurjar encampment, where the men made a litter to carry her to someone for treatment. So it also shows that Sibia, even though just 12 years old, was a street smart girl. She knew what to do as part of basic first aid. So she rubbed sand on it. Why? Because she did not want her to continue to bleed, because if she continued to bleed, that would kind of make her medical situation worse. So she ensured that she put sand on her wound so that she did not bleed, and then she took her to that encampment which we've already seen while they were coming to the river. In part 1 of the story we described that, and she gave ensured that the men of that particular encampment will take her somewhere for better and further medical attention. Then Sibia went back for her grass and sickle and fork because that was left behind there on the river. And remember, this is now the time it's almost dark. The fork was lying in the river, not carried away luckily. And as she bent to pick it up out of the river, she saw the blue bead. The title of the story, the blue bead, which we have been introduced right at the beginning, that there was a blue bead somewhere in the river. And now that the crocodile was gone, she saw the blue bead. Not blue now with the sun nearly gone because it was dark, but a no color white blue and its shape wobbling in the movement of the stream. She reached her arm down into a yard of the cold silk water. Why has Norah Burke described as silk water? Because silk is soft, and here the water is also giving you the same feeling of being very, very smooth and soft. So just see the kind of narrative that Norah Burke is able to build with this exquisite, fantastic use, wonderful use of language. And that's really the best part about studying English literature, because you can get to enjoy, improve your vocabulary, and just see how good authors actually use the power of language to describe and actually even make a scene look so much better. And that is something which you need to learn from. Forget the examination, forget the questions and answers. These are lessons for life, and that's what makes literature so much fascinating. Missing it first of all because of the refraction. So she had missed it the first time, but now she saw the blue bead, right? Because you must have seen it, read it in physics, that because of the refraction, the object is not where you think it is. It would be a little moved away from the manner in which you see it through the naked eye. So she had to struggle a bit in order to get her hands on the blue bead. So even small detail Norah Burke has managed to bring out in a very, very fascinating manner. Then there it lay in her wet palm, perfect, even pierced, ready for use. So even though she did not have a needle, as we have been told, we described it in part 1 of the story, now she does not even have to pierce it because it's already pierced and ready for use, with the sunset shuffled about inside it to gold, like gold dust. All her heart went up in flames of joy. So as far as Sibia is concerned, she had already done her heroic deed, which seemed nothing big to her, but her happiness was because she had found this blue bead. And the fact that she did not have to pierce the bead because her needle had broken. After a bit, she twisted it into the top of her skirt against her tummy. She would feel now if it burst through the poor cloth and fell. So she put it inside her cloth and ensured that it touched against her tummy, so that in case if it fell off, she would realize it immediately. So that also shows another aspect of her personality, which is that she was careful about things that she really wanted. Then she picked up her fork and sickle and the heavy grass and set off home. What a day. It had really been a very, very important and a very busy day, a heroic day. Her bare feet smudged out of the wriggle mark of snakes in the dust. There was a thin singing of malaria mosquitoes, which essentially means that it is really dark, so you could feel the singing of the zzz thing of the mosquitoes. There were the wriggle mark of snakes on the grass, which means that she was going through a dangerous and a risky forest area. And this track was much used at night by a morose old Makna elephant. So an elephant which could also attack. So just look at the kind of dangerous life that Sibia was living, and yet she was there, heroic and not afraid at all. The elephant was the tuskless one, but Sibia was not thinking of any of them. The stars came out, she noticed. So the stars had come out, which means it was well past sunset that she was going back home. On the way back, she met her mother, because the mother had gone ahead, and then she realized that her daughter had not come back home. Out of breath, which means she was running around looking for her daughter, come to look for her and scolding. I did not see till I was home that you were not there, because she presumed that she had already gone, whereas Sibia was actually much behind. I thought something must have happened to you. And Sibia burst out with her story and cried, something did. I found a blue bead for my necklace. Look. So it essentially shows a child's innocence and a little joy. So she's not bothered about the fact that she managed to actually save, rescue a Gujjar woman, administer her first aid, fought against a mighty crocodile which was over 12 feet tall. She was more bothered in her childlike innocence about the fact, and giving her extreme happiness, that she had found a blue bead for her necklace, and that's what she wanted to show to her mother. So Let's now look at the different themes in this particular short story. A very fascinating story about this fight and the heroism of a little girl in the forest area of northern India. So one of the questions that could come, as I told you in part 1, is about the description of the crocodile. So that is something which you should know. Mark out the keywords like mugger, the antediluvian saurian, which essentially means an outdated reptile with a lizard-like body. It's also called a prehistoric juggernaut. The fact that whatever it eats on ducks, on human beings, on stray dogs, on monkeys. You need to remember all those kind of things. You need to know its height, the fact that it's almost 100 years old and that it had managed to survive from the time that it had got out of its shell. The fact about it being formidable and ferocious, and the fact, the soft part, that only the eyes and the soft underarms offered a place to kill him, and that is something which Sibia knew in this particular case. Also, one of the other questions that could be asked is, what is the nature of the crocodile? So the crocodile being described as someone who is livid, having an evil smile, but at the same time afraid of noise. Those are some of the small aspects. If you are able to cleverly and smartly put these small aspects, trust me, that will impress the examiner. And the big tip that I want to give you is that it's quite likely that a question from the Blue Bead or R.K. Say Horse and Two Goats would definitely come in the examination paper in 2020. So you need to prepare these two chapters, these two short stories very well. Then another important question is that what was the crocodile's food, which we just discussed. What are the animals in the water is another short question, a 2-mark or a 3-mark question that could come, which we have already discussed. You also need to, if you are able to put in the other animals in the forest like the tuskless elephant or the snakes wriggling, the mosquitoes singing, then of course the title of the story, very important, because that is something which should be spoken about, that why it was important for Sibia to have the blue bead, what kind of a bead it was, and you need to write that it was a blue gem which was glimmering. It was not a gem but a sand-worn glass, and the fact that it was already pierced, and why it was important for Sibia, why was she so happy that it was pierced. You need to write those reasons also. What is the significance of the blue bead? Because the blue bead essentially, in a nutshell, essentially represents, please write this down, the dreams and aspirations of Sibia. It is symbolic, it's a symbol for whatever she aspires for, because she's not leading an easy life like you and me. She's leading a very tough life where she has to survive on food which is spoiled, where she has to convince herself that she's having a lot of food by dividing it and breaking it into many small parts. The fact that she does not have new clothes to wear, the fact that she just goes to the village fair and just looks around because she does not even have 1 anna to buy any of those things which are available at the village fair. So it's not an easy life for her to lead, but the blue bead which she aspires for is representative of the dreams that she has in life. Its importance to her can be gauged from the fact that the killing of the crocodile is not as important to her as the discovery of the blue bead in the river, and that's what makes Sibia happy. Childlike innocence is that she does not have to wait for the family to collect enough money, to have enough money to buy a needle in order to be able to pierce a bead with. So it's a symbol of her very simple desires and aspirations in life. What kind of a person is Sibia? We have given a lot of descriptions of that, and that is something, again, mark the keywords and use it in the answers, because that is something which will always fetch you good marks. That she's resourceful, we have known, because she's able to kind of make good use of whatever she has. How is poverty conveyed? And the theme of poverty, one of the important themes in this particular story, through the food, through the fact that the family needle had broken and did not have the money to buy a needle, that she did not have an anna for her to buy anything from the village fair, the fact that she did not have good clothes to wear and she had to kind of tear it down to make a skirt and a sari. Those are some of the themes. The fact that what was Sibia's secret is another thing which I just mentioned, about the fact that she had those little cavelings where she would place those little clay balls which she would want to paint them later. So an artistic nature, a creative kind of a pursuit, and something, the small joys which would make the 12-year-old girl very, very happy. What are the different tasks that Sibia did? That is again something which you will need to note out for, which meant she husked corn, she cut grass for fodder, she gathered sticks, she put dung out to dry, she cooked, she weeded and fetched water. So a lot of things that she did. She collected paper grass from the cliffs above the river. That is something which she did. And the fact that the disparity of labor, which we also spoke about, how the women did all the hard work while the men were the agents who just smoked a hookah and just made business interacting with the people at the market. The daily routine of women at the Gujar village, that is something which you should spoke about. The attire of the Gujar women, that's another beautiful description about how they wore trousers tight and wrinkled at the ankles, large silver rings made in their ears made of melted rupees, and the fact that they owned buffaloes and fetched water in brass guras. Those are some of the different descriptions that you need to remember, and as I keep saying, ensure that you are having the keywords memorized by marking it, so that every time you read it more than once, you would be able to remember it very, very well. So that is the detailed explanation of the Blue Bead, which, as I said, there is a very good chance that it may come in the 2020 examination paper. So do prepare it well. If you have any doubts, do write in the comment section, and I hope you have subscribed to the channel and also pressed on the bell icon, and do spread the word and share the video with your friends, so that more of your friends can actually benefit from this detailed explanation of the Blue Bead and all the other poems and short stories which you have covered on Study with Sudhir YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching.